The Game Boy was home to a fierce library of small arcadey titles and was perfect for puzzle games. With Panel to Pawn doing well in Japan and Tetris being such a legendary game, there was actually a forgotten gem among them. Enter Mario Picross! So, what makes this game so legendary and so good? Honestly, the puzzles themselves are excellent, but we're going to get a little bit further into it by talking about nonograms. That's right, this is what Picross puzzles are originally named. Today we're going to be getting a second into what a nonogram is, when they started, and why Nintendo has them so cornered in the market today, and where the series eventually went off to. Let's go and start. Nonograms came out in 1987 by two Japanese people. There was Nanashita, a graphics editor who won a competition in Tokyo by creating grid pictures using skyscraper lights, and Tetsuya Nishio, a professional puzzler who published the same puzzles in a local magazine. In 1990, James Dalgetty in the UK invented the name nonograms after Nanashita, and the Sunday Telegraph started publishing them on a weekly basis. So once again I ask, what makes Mario's Picross so much of a better game? Well, it really has to do with its theming. Having Mario become an archaeologist kind of reminds me of his time in Sarasaland in the Mario Land series. Also, started on Game Boy. I love the actual look of it because it reminds me of the Pyramid Stages. Just look at these two games side by side, and you're going to notice the theming is very similar, even down to some of the hieroglyphics in Picross. It's kind of cool that the first Picross game from Nintendo just so happens to line up a little bit with the Mario spin-off side-scrollers on the Game Boy. For all that have never played Picross, the concept is simple. You're given a grid to fill with squares and X's to create a pixelated image on the grid, with the X's there to remind yourself where squares don't go. The number sets on the sides are telling you where the squares go. If there are two numbers, it means, for instance, there is 5 squares, then a gap of at least 1 for an X, then we'll say like 1 square. And that's all she wrote. The whole game is just that, but it's incredibly logical and really good to scratch that itch that puzzle games give people. That brilliant aha moment that all of us seek. So what makes Mario Picross better than regular nonograms? The honest answer actually all lands on the game's aesthetic. The presentation is gloriously Game Boy and it needs no language but logic. Picross is exactly the kind of game Grandma could play like it was a crossword puzzle. And the archaeology angle I mentioned before is interesting for all ages to look at. I'll admit during the course of my time playing and writing the review for this, I downloaded Picross on Android and enjoyed more difficult puzzles. This is a good entrance to the world of Picross, Game Boy, and nonograms all put in one. The strength of this game is how all-around effective it is on the Game Boy at what it sets out to do. And the honest answer to all of it is just the fact that the Game Boy can't handle much. Whenever a game comes along to push the limit but still have a simple idea, that's when you got a hit on your hands. Think about all your Pokemon Reds, your Final Fantasy Legends. Any RPG on the Game Boy may seem too big for it, but then again in the modern day, people are pushing hours and hours of gameplay out just because of the amount of understanding there is for this console now. Go check out some of the homebrew scene and play Mario Picross because this game is excellent to this day. So what are my final thoughts on Mario's Picross? Ultimately, the theming on this game is actually like AAA levels of quality. I do think this actually does really hold up a lot. The only thing I will say, and something I have not mentioned throughout this whole thing, is think about this thing's original retail pricing. I don't want to talk about it today as a problem because these games are relatively cheap now. There's not a whole lot of puzzles. there couldn't have been. It's just, you could probably get a nonogram puzzle book back then for a lot cheaper, assumably. But for the Game Boy, and for the theming of Mario being an archaeological dig, I gotta say it's charming. Thank you, Nintendo, it's great. And I have to give this thing a 6 out of 10. So please, if you guys want to see more reviews from yours truly, thank you so much for coming. Please, ring that bell, give that like, and that subscribe for more. And tell your friends about this show, because I would love to have everyone alongside you. Come and tune in again. And Dungeontendo